Hello and welcome everyone back to Bortnik YouTube channel in English. My name is James Talberg and I'm again here with my colleagues Ruslan, Bortnik and Maryna Cherenkova, where we're going to discuss the latest updates about Ukraine. Colleagues, welcome. I'm glad to see you again.
Hello, James.
Hello, James. Thank you for having us.
We have a lot to discuss. It's been an intense week and actually an intense past 2 weeks. I want to start probably from the most intense news. Ukraine has bombed with drones Russian tactical planes that could carry a nuclear weapon. Ruslan, let's try to break it down. Why do you think Ukraine has decided to go for that operation? What stands behind it? What do you think they have been trying to achieve? Have they achieved what they have been trying to achieve? And also, what strikes me, if we can add it into it, is that after the operation, first of all, they took responsibility, which they haven't had to do, but they took the responsibility. And then I saw one of Zelensky's statements where he said, I don't know if it's quote to quote, but it was something along the lines, Trump has told me that we have no cards. Here we go. We do have cards, and so on and so forth. And let's see how the conversation is going to continue now. It sounded a little bit like a power move. And at the same time, that power move happened during the negotiations between the Ukrainian and Russian side in Istanbul. We had the first round, we had the second round. So the sides were negotiating the terms. I don't want to dive into the negotiations right now. We can get back to it later. But the drone attack happened during the negotiations, not specifically the same day, but during the process when the sides were trying to present each other their memorandums, their perspective, what they can compromise, what they cannot. And then, boom, we've got the drone attacks and we've got Zelensky's statement. And in general, it looks a little bit unclear. If you can drop some light on that situation, what do you think is happening here?
Yes, you're right, James. There are too many explanations what were the reasons of this operation, spiderweb operation. But the last reason I heard from Ukrainian president just today, it was that this operation happened because Russia refused the ceasefire during the first round of negotiation in Istanbul. But I think we can divide two plots of operation. We can divide all of these goals in two plots of these goals in this operation. The first plot or scope of these goals, of Ukrainian goals in this operation, it's a military goals, of course. We were trying to decrease the level of Russian abilities to make rocket strikes on Ukraine using these airplanes. Also, Ukraine tried to show the weakness of Russia and the weakness of Russian nuclear power potential in this moment, because this nuclear power potential of Russia, nuclear weapon potential of Russia, it's extremely important part of geopolitical stability and balance in the world. So it made the absence of this nuclear weapon in Russia made Russia invincible in this moment, untouchable during this war. And Ukraine tried to show that Russia is very touchable. Russia is very weak. We are able even to cut down even the nuclear weapon Russian abilities in this moment. Also, it was an attempt to show the new Ukrainian abilities in military abilities. Also, Ukrainian operation in deep Russian territories had to show how Ukraine is capable now in military ways. We are not losing the war. It was the main message of this operation. But I think this military scope of goals is not main. The main scope of goals, of course, political goals. And I think Ukraine was trying to convince our Western allies to continue the support of Ukraine, military and financial support. Many people in the West now believe that Ukraine is losing the war. because Russia is capturing more and more lands. Russia is developing its own military-industrial complex very fast, and Russian military abilities are growing up. They are not decreasing like it was hoped before in the first years of the war. They are increasing, opposite. And Ukraine was trying to convince to give the Western society that there is a good chance for Ukraine in this war. You have to support Ukraine, and Ukraine maybe will win this war. Also, it was a hope for internal Ukrainian society, because we are now in Ukraine under a big pressure of this Russian offensive operation. There are a few or a very small amount a positive news, and this was some kind of game changer, like Kursk operation. This was attempt for game changer during this war. And of course, from military side, this operation was very, very good. It was absolutely excellent. From military side, I'm sure that it will be in all military books in the world, even in the Russian books, because it was made technically, it was made very good. But I'm afraid that Ukrainian government hasn't calculated the one more consequences of this operation. What I'm talking about? I'm talking about that this operation, when at least 1/3 of Russian strategic aircrafts were broken or it were injured in different ways. It leads to the change in not only balance between Ukraine and Russia, but it leads to the change in the balance between Russia and West. And Russia recognized this attack like attack which was made not only by Ukraine, but also Ukraine plus West. And so it is existential question. And it grows up the risks of World War, because it's changing the existential nuclear weapon balance in the war. And as I see, only some Ukrainian allies were very happy because of this operation, but the majority of Ukrainian allies, especially the United States, were extremely afraid of this. They were not able to calculate all consequences of this Ukrainian operation, and they tried to make as huge distance from this operation as they could at that moment. So I think the consequences of this operation, politically and military, we are not still able to recognize all these consequences. I think the future of the Ukrainian-Russian war will be very deeply dependent on this operation, because this operation, Spiderweb Ukrainian operation, made this war really geopolitical, and gives the Russia chances to do everything, because the United States president, you see that Trump said that Russia has the right, Russia has the logic to do something like this. Maybe we need to step over this conflict to see like these kids will be fighting in the park. Everybody heard. It changed a lot geopolitical balance of Ukraine, and I think this operation, even taking into account the military success, this operation changed geopolitical balance in non-pro-Ukrainian way.
I want to just make
just would like to.
Maryna,
Sorry, I just would like to elaborate on Ruslan's word. But Ruslan, what is next? Okay, that was a very beautiful, extremely impressive war operation. But what is next?
So that's we'll get there, because that's a point that I want you, Maryna, actually to break down with you. But before we get there, a couple of remarks. I actually wanted to make a comparison between Kursk operation and the recent drone operation as well, just like you've mentioned, Ruslan. And just to make a point, it looks to me at this time that Ukraine is very good in one-time operations, like Kursk operation. It's
Case operation. Yes.
yeah, a case operation. Yeah, it's like a tactical operation that gives you that impression, but doesn't change anything systematically. I'm a big fan of systematic work, systematic projects, and it looks to me that Russia is winning systematically. They don't have any, you know, uh, surprise operations or any case operations. They're just systematically improving their systems, getting better, increasing their military capacity. And Ukraine is more on hybrid system. We're going to do an operation here, we're going to do an operation here, and here, there, and we'll try to use that operation as a game changer. The Kursk was supposed to be a game changer. It was, maybe for a month, maybe for a month and a half, and that's it. They haven't used that properly as they were supposed to. It was an exchange at land for land. It haven't changed anything in terms of the war in general. Like Russia didn't buy into it. They haven't took their forces from the eastern side of Ukraine and brought them to elaborate Kursk. It took them a little bit longer to deal with that case operation that was initiated by Ukraine, but they've dealt with it. And it like that whole impression was just gone. By the end of the day, nobody's talking now about Kursk operation. It looks like long term, it's useless. At the moment, it's impressive. Long term doesn't change anything.
I'm not agree with you, James. Kursk operation also helped Ukraine to win some time, but Ukraine wasted that time.
Wasted that time. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Long term.
So we have a huge disbalance between Ukraine and Russia in military capabilities, and Ukrainian government just trying to change the negative trend in this war. Because if this war will go in this way, like it happens now, it means that Ukraine will not win in this war. I'm trying to be very polite. Ukraine. Yeah. We will lose more territories, more peoples, and so on and so on. Now, Russian forces are making an offensive operation, for example, in Sumy Oblast, and they are 18 kilometers till the main capital of this region, Sumy.
No, I definitely understand that they have to come up with something that will be a game changer, and they are coming up with brilliant ideas, but they don't use them at the end of the day. Like
they are wasting time. They are very, very effective in so-called sabotage attacks, and because we are not able to resist Russian forces, we are not equal to Russian forces, and we are not able them to resist in the battlefield. In the battlefield, we are slowly losing this war. So very slowly, it may take many years, but we're losing this war. So Ukraine is trying to change the estimation, evaluation of this war inside of society, outside of Ukraine, by this case operation, by this sabotage case, diversion cases, and so on, so on. But unfortunately, I'm thinking maybe Ukraine exhausted this instrument for nowadays. So the first, I want to remind you, Ukrainian first such kind of first operations like blasting the Crimea Bridge and so on, so on. They make exhausting of exciting in Ukrainian society. In outside Ukraine achieved a much more support from the West and so on. This previous operation against Russian fleet, against Crimea Bridge, with long-range strikes in deep Russian offlands, also drones on the Crimean, and so on, so on. Everything of it made some kind of exciting, and it was extremely good results for Ukraine. But the last such called Ukrainian operation, like a Kursk operation or operation Spider Web operation against Russian airplanes, they are not causing such effects.
So it was a very effective tool at the beginning, but they lost it.
Maybe we're exhausting this emotional reaction inside of society and outside of society
And
for
outside
even this successful operation.
Maryna, now I want to break down that second part that you were bringing up in terms of what's next. So before we go into what's next, I want to bring up again just the foundation, why that conflict have initiated. Russia felt existentially threatened in their perspective because of NATO expansion, because of Ukrainians' will to integrate inside the European Union, NATO. So Russia felt existentially threatened to the point that they have decided to take a risk and start a military operation or a war. From their perspective, it's a military operation. From other people's perspective in the country, it's a war in Ukraine. That's a big risk. It's something that they have decided to go for because they felt existentially threatened. I think at this point, this is something that the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian leaders need to understand, that they were just in between, in the middle, where the West was expanding, and Russia felt threatened. Do you think that move by threatening Russia even more, by showing that they are weak from their last safe island as a nuclear weapon, would escalate the war even further? And as have Ruslan mentioned, it's not just changing the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's not just changing the balance between the countries that are fighting, but it's also changing the situation between the West and Russia. For example, I think I don't know if that was written or unwritten rule, that these planes have to be exposed. They cannot be hidden. They have to be exposed. So they were vulnerable to begin with. It's not like it's some magic weapon that found those planes, or some insanely complex operation that they have found that hidden nuke inside shelter 100 meters down the earth. It's exposed. It's vulnerable for a reason, and not just from Russian side, but probably from the United States as well, and other countries that have those nuclear abilities. I'm saying this because I'm also thinking about the Israel-Iran situation. Even when Iran have attacked Israel, and the most logical move for Israel was, okay, well, now we have open hands to go and attack your nuclear factories, whatever, wherever Iranians are producing the potential nuke bombs or the potential nuke ability. Israelis haven't done so because it's kind of like a red line that you don't want to cross, because if you will, you can potentially get a bigger escalation. Why, in your opinion, Ukraine have decided to cross that line when, just like I've mentioned, I might be wrong, but just like I've mentioned in the beginning, Russia have initiated this escalation because they felt existentially threatened. And now they're double existentially threatened because their last resort of safety, which is a nuclear capability, is under the threat as well. And just want to bring back the question to you. What do you think will happen next? Not just between Ukraine and Russia, but also between that balance that was basically broken since the beginning of World War II, where the countries were exposing their nuclear weapons, when the countries were trying to manage the whole nuclear threat to each other and make it as balanced and as cautious as possible for everybody who's participating in that geopolitical system. What's next? It's going to be a new nuke world order that has to be revamped, or we'll see an insane escalation prior?
Oh, thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for wrapping up all that situation for our friends. James, I would like to be extremely pragmatic, and I'm not judging. I would like just to ask rhetorical questions about that operation. The questions from not just Russian expertise, but from the United States experts are the following. And maybe both of you will help me to answer those questions. The question number one, is it possible for Ukraine to do that operation alone? not just to create an idea, not just to develop timing, logistics, and so on and so forth. Is that possible, even hypothetically, that Ukraine and its status now would be able to do that alone? Yes or no? I believe it's absolutely clear that no. That means that allies, as Ruslan earlier mentioned, and that is quite questionable for me because Ukraine doesn't have any official ally document signed. But let's say countries which do support Ukraine and from intelligence service as well, somehow were involved in that operation, correct? Yes. And that brings me back to your first statement about existential Russian issues towards Ukraine. So Russia believes that Ukraine is full of different intelligence services, full of different tools, operations, and all sort of small tactical war operations which were created by West. It brings us to exactly the narratives Ruslan told us before. We are observing a next level of escalation which might be so dangerous. We are not ready to talk to each other. We are not ready to put on table any wise or not even wise, constructural, clever ideas about the new security order. But we are, as a countries, as people, we are ready to do not very clever things like spiderweb. I do understand it is innovative, it is bright, it is absolutely the subject for learning next 20 years. I totally agree with that. But what is next? Where was strategy before, if any? Does Ukraine have any strategy? I'm afraid no. That's the main problem. Ukraine always underestimated Russia. I don't know how it works in Ukrainians' best minds, I don't know, strategists' minds. But I was told since I was a child to underestimate is a really bad strategy. Overestimate is not a good one, but it's a bit safer. So just to wrap up, I don't believe that we could carry on like that, especially with nukes. I do think that somebody should say that if Ukraine behaves itself as unpredictable partner or unpredictable ally, it should be a really deep conversation. It should be a really structured dialogue to stop that, because playing with nukes, that is not an option. That is not the option at all. That's from my perspective.
Maryna, how do you think the United States is going to manage that situation now? Because they're one of the nuke safety guarantors in the world. And we can see now Trump pulling out of it completely. He's saying, I'm just going to let these kids keep fighting in the park. He's literally wrapping up his hands and being like, you know what, I'm out. That is completely different from his rhetoric that he'll try to settle that war in 24 hours, in 2 weeks, or whatever other different time frame he gave. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I can see a complete switch from I want to stop this war because thousands of people are dying weekly to, you know what, I'm going to let them keep fighting. How do you think they will manage it?
I don't see any contradictions, frankly speaking. I want to stop that war and let them keep fighting, because that is the effect of what I've mentioned earlier, unpredictability of those partners, just unpredictability. The mindset of Americans are absolutely different from the European mindset, and definitely from Ukrainian and Russian. And we've discussed with you earlier that the absence of a very good professionally good expertise inside of the United States towards Russian history, Ukrainian cultural code. We don't have that anymore in the United States. That's why we are losing, from my perspective. During the Cold War, we had sort of the Soviet school, at least very top quality experts who understood how Soviets thought at that time. Now we don't. So that's why I'm very much afraid that it will be the point when Americans just say, you know what? We cannot predict, we cannot rely, we cannot stop corruption, we cannot stop even basic things like, please brief us before you go to hit nukes to your neighbor state, Russia, even if that neighbor state is your existential enemy. If it is the case, why would we play that game? It doesn't bring anything. And the American people, and American government, and American cultural code is, let us make money and enjoy life. Let us be beautiful and strong and enjoy life. Let us make a partnership and enjoy life. But nothing is going on. What we see and what we observe here, from my perspective, I'm paying my taxes for what? I'm paying my taxes to support Ukrainian people, and I'm extremely happy to do that. But I don't want my taxes to be stolen somewhere in Ukraine. And corruption is still number one issue there, including corruption in the military sphere. I don't want, as a taxpayer as an American taxpayer, I don't want any unpredictable move on the nukes playground. I just don't. Because you've mentioned earlier that it is absolutely pure agreement that those huge planes must not be covered. That is a monitoring program. It could not be covered in the United States or in France or in Russian Federation. They should be exposed. They should be visible. So, and Ukraine, understanding that, does what it does to what? To raise the spirit, to raise and motivate people inside. That is not a strategy, I have to tell you, and that is not good attitude to Ukrainians who are living inside of the country and who are closed. Because I hate to say that, but somebody should say that. That is, like a slavery, because men are not able to leave country. They have to be inside of the country under the shelling with their families, with their kids. And that is just psychological killing as well. Even if you are not on the front line, so psychologically you are on the front line. So my question is, what is that for? What is the final goal? More money? Good. But what? I'm ready to give more money from my taxes, but could you please explain me any developments, progressive developments, how you mitigate corruption? No strategy how to mitigate corruption. No strategy how to take care of your own nation towards the post-trauma syndrome. No a very serious attitude to children who are doing online education already for the 4th year. Nothing is going on. Everything I hear or I see is, let's go for war, we will win, we are the best. And I'm not arguing that Ukrainians are the best. I mean, each nation believes that they are the best.
Absolutely.
I would like
I just don't want to pay for that. I want to pay. I love to pay. I sincerely donate a lot of my personal resources towards kids, medications, post-trauma syndrome groups. but I don't want my money to be stolen. I want strategy how to help people, not how to kill people.
I would like to shortly add to Maryna's speech. I think there were two Ukraine expectations before and after this spiderweb operation. The first expectation, Ukraine expected maybe that Russia will not take part, would not take part in second round of negotiation in Istanbul, because this operation happened one day before this second round in Istanbul, and Ukraine was trying to increase its own position, and Ukraine also maybe expected that Russia will make the very angry position and would not take part in this negotiation, and so it helped Ukraine to claim Russia that Russia is not willing to take the peace, to make the peace. And the second expectation, this war is very personal, maybe, and it was also a new attempt from Zelensky's side to humiliate Putin personally, to injure his reputation personally. Putin makes the same. This war is very personally, and sometimes it looks like the leaders of the countries are trying just to compare their own reputation. And many things which they are doing, it's very emotional, irrational from the countryside or even military side, but they are very important, very logic if you are taking into account their personal reputation, personal attitude toward each other, and so on and so on.
Talking about personal war, just a very small footnote, as I say. Do you remember, Ruslan, that the first meeting we've discussed with you, the first meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin, they say in Europe, they say that President Putin was quite positive towards President Zelensky.
We don't know exactly. There are a lot of rumors, but that last meeting in 2019 in Paris, France, a lot of rumors about.
Yes, I understand that.
About the behavior of the sides. Even there are rumors about songs, about smiles, and so on, humiliating behaving during these meetings from the both sides. And that's the reason of a huge confrontation between the leaders. And this huge confrontation between the leaders, also one of the main reasons why we entered the war.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I think. That's exactly what I do believe in. And I don't believe in rumors, but I believe in cause and effect.
So it means that with other leaders, we will maybe achieve another situation.
Of course. Of course. But we have to be quite realistic, or at least try to do our best to understand that next, let's say, at least 5 years, Russia will not have any other leader. We understand that, right?
Ukraine now also. The elections are impossible and so on. And we trapped now in this political reality.
So, Ruslan, does that mean that the rest of the world are just hostages in that personal conflict between Russia and Ukraine? Of course, the rest of the world, including allies, are making money selling Ukraine weapons and all sorts of supplies. But globally, or on the bigger scale, all of us are hostages because leaders just don't.
Yeah, I not fully agree because the rest of the world has the right to choice. This choice hasn't Ukrainian people or hasn't Russian people. The rest of the world has a choice what to do. Continue the war, continue the support, continue the peace. What they want, they can do.
I don't think so, Ruslan, because if it is a war between Russia's nuke power and Ukraine plus collective West, I believe that the rest of the countries are hostages. If they will launch any nuke steps or episodes in that war, I believe world can be terrified.
Yeah, I agree. More exactly, the rest countries of the war are also hostages of their own leaders, which made a lot of statements before during the beginning of the war, and now which are very dependent on their previous position.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that. Exactly. Words do matter.
Yeah.
Colleagues, that was incredible. Unfortunately, we're limited by time. I say we end it here. And friends, please subscribe to our channel. If you have any specific comments that you would like to ask us or any of our experts, please let us know in the comments. And we'll be back with more updates and different topics that we would like to discuss and share our opinion and expertise with you. Colleagues, thank you again, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. And friends, don't forget to subscribe for our channel to don't miss our next updates. Bye-bye.